Kitty at St Clare's, written by Pamela Cox, and this is book number 6 in the series. Chapter 1. Where's Pat? Isabel O'Sullivan and her cousin Alison sat in the small station cafe drinking cups of tea and eating jammy buns. Both girls were waiting for the train that would take them back to St Clare's after the holidays. "Mummy dropped us off here far too early," complained Isabel, who was bored with the wait and Alison's company, and longing to see some of the other third formers. "That was my fault," said Alison sheepishly. "I thought that the clock in your kitchen was slow. Sorry." Isabel swallowed the last of her tea, then, glancing out of the window, brightened as she saw a group of girls in the familiar St Clare's uniform walk by. But they turned out to be top formers and sailed past without so much as a glance at the two younger girls, which made them feel very small indeed. Isabel sighed. "I shall miss Pat terribly," she said for about the 50th time. "Well, you have plenty of other friends in the third form, and Pat will be back in a couple of weeks," pointed out Alison with commendable and, for her, unusual common sense. Isabel nodded, though she still felt miserable. She did have lots of friends at St Clare's, good friends, but it just wasn't the same as having her twin with her. Alison just didn't understand what it was like to share everything, even thoughts and feelings, to be so close to someone that they were almost a part of you. How she had hated leaving Pat this morning, and how Pat had hated being left behind. "You will write, won't you?" her twin had said anxiously that morning. "Every week, and tell me all the news?" "Of course, but what a pity you won't be able to write back." Isabel had tapped the plaster cast on Pat's right arm. "Don't worry about that, Isabel," Mr. O'Sullivan had said. "Pat can dictate her letters to me, and I'll write them out for her. I shall be her secretary." That had made both girls laugh. But when the time came for them to part, they had felt more like crying. "Now we must be sensible about this," Pat had said briskly, seeing Isabel's chin begin to tremble. "We shall be together again very soon, after all. Besides, if we start crying, that will set Alison off. You know she loves a good blub." Alison had taken the teasing in good part, laughing and punching her cousin playfully on her good arm. So the twins had parted on this lighter note, but for Isabel some of the pleasure she always felt in going back to St Clare's was gone. "I say, Isabel," cried Alison suddenly, "isn't that Bobby and Janet over there?" "Yes, and Hilary too," said Isabel, forgetting her woes for a moment and jumping to her feet so hastily that she almost upset the table. "Come on, Alison, let's go." The two girls dashed out onto the platform, calling out, "Hi, Bobby, Janet, Hilary, wait for us!" The little group of third formers turned round, their faces breaking into delighted smiles as they saw their friends. "Hello, Isabel." "Hello, Alison. Nice to see you again. Had good holes? Isn't it grand to be going back to school? I say, where's Pat?" "She's broken her arm," explained Isabel dismally. "It's her right one, so Mummy decided there wasn't much point in her coming back to school until it's healed." "Golly, what rotten luck!" exclaimed Hilary. "How on earth did she manage that?" Isabel grinned. "She took it into her head to pay a visit to the old tree house that Dad made for us when we were little. I warned her that the branch wouldn't bear her weight, and I was right." "Ouch," said Bobby. "Poor Pat." "Most undignified behaviour for a third former," said Janet, pretending to be shocked. "Seriously though, I'm terribly sorry. How long until she comes back?" 2 or 3 weeks, the doctor thinks," answered Isabel. "So you others will have to put up with me hanging around you until then." Well, I dare say we can put up with you if it's only for a short while, said Bobby with her wicked grin. Oh, look, here comes Jenny. The third formers turned to see Jennifer Mills of the sixth coming towards them, a pleasant smile on her kindly face. Hello, you lot, she greeted them cheerily. I expect you've all heard that I'm to be head girl this term as well as games captain, so if you have any worries or problems, I'm always on hand to help. Thanks, Jenny, said the third formers rather shyly. They all looked up to her enormously. Yet, as Hilary said when the other girl had moved away, there's something so lovely and warm about Jenny, even though she's so sensible and dignified. You really feel as if you could tell her your problems and she would listen and take an interest. The others agreed. Then Janet said, Now there's someone I wouldn't like to share my troubles with. Margaret Winters. The others looked round as another sixth former approached. Margaret was a remarkably good-looking girl with straight dark hair cut in a dramatic bob, unusual violet-coloured eyes, and high cheekbones that gave her a rather exotic appearance. She also looked extremely haughty, and it seemed as though she would pass by the third formers without a word. Then her glance fell on Alison, and she saw the way the girl was staring up at her, eyes wide with admiration. Margaret liked admiration. She bestowed a dazzling smile on the girl, said, Hello, Alison, and favoured the others with a brief nod before passing on. My word, Alison, you're honoured, exclaimed Hilary. Fancy Margaret, of all people, speaking to a mere third former. Alison said nothing, staring raptly at Margaret's retreating figure. Bobby nudged Isabel and said slyly, Looks as if your cousin has found someone else to worship. Alison, don't say you're going to lose your silly heart to Margaret Winters. Alison's habit of idolizing the most unsuitable people was a standing joke amongst the third formers, and the girl turned red, saying defensively, Nothing of the sort, though I admire her tremendously, of course. She's so attractive and has such poise and self-confidence. Yes, it's just a pity her character doesn't match up to her looks, said Janet dryly. That's a terrible thing to say, cried Alison. I'm sure I don't know what you've all got against her. She's sly, said Hilary, and spiteful. Last term she made one of the first formers learn a great long speech of Shakespeare's and recite it to her, simply for cheeking her a little bit. Quite right too, said Alison indignantly. Some of those kids are far too full of themselves, and they need to learn a little respect for the top formers. Don't waste your time, murmured Isabel, as Hilary opened her mouth to say something else. You know what Alison's like. Once she's decided that someone's worthy of her adoration, the more you try to put her off Margaret, the more she will stick up for her. I suppose you're right, said Hilary, with a rueful grin. I say, isn't that our train along there? May as well find ourselves good seats before the crush starts. Come along, everyone. The girls hurried along the platform, then Janet suddenly tapped Bobby's shoulder and said, I wonder what's going on over there. Looks like some kind of row. The third formers turned their heads and saw two new girls standing facing one another. Both had their hands on their hips, and judging from the angry scowls on their faces, were exchanging heated words, while their embarrassed parents tried to calm them down. Friendly-looking pair, said Bobby wryly. I suppose they must be sisters, although they don't look much alike. Indeed, they didn't. One girl was fair and slightly plump, while the other was dark and slim. Suddenly Miss Jenks, the second form mistress, bustled across and said something to the girls' parents. The sisters themselves immediately fell silent, quite awed by her authoritative tone and air of dignity. Helen, you come with me, and I'll introduce you to some of the second form, said Miss Jenks to the fair girl. Then she glanced across and spotted Janet, beckoning her over. Janet, this is Amanda Wilkies, who is to be in your form this term," she said, placing a hand on the dark girl's shoulders. "Take her under your wing for a bit, would you?" "Of course, Miss Jenks," answered Janet proudly. She was to be head of the form this term, and making the new girls feel welcome was one of her duties. She waited patiently while the two girls said goodbye to their parents. Then Miss Jenks led Helen away, and Janet took Amanda's arm in a friendly way, saying, "It looks as if the others have boarded the train. Let's join them, and I'll introduce you to everyone." The third formers looked up with interest when Janet came into their carriage with the new girl. She looked a little nervous, and no wonder, thought Isabel, giving her a friendly smile. It must be quite an ordeal, starting at a new school where the others had all known one another for ages. "Everyone, this is Amanda Wilkies," said Janet. "Amanda, meet Isabel, Allison, Hilary, and Bobby." "Nice to meet you, Amanda," said Hilary. "Is this your first time at boarding school?" "Yes, and I've been looking forward to coming to St Clare so much," replied the girl. "I just wish Helen didn't have to tag along and spoil everything for me." The girls were rather shocked at this. What a terrible thing to say about one's own sister. Isabel couldn't imagine ever feeling like that about Pat, and said, "I should have thought it would help you settle in having your sister with you." "Helen isn't my sister," said Amanda, obviously horrified at the very thought. "We aren't related at all." "Oh," said Bobby, "when we saw you both together with the two grown-ups, we just assumed that you must be sisters." "She's my stepsister," explained Amanda. "You see, my father died when I was a baby, and Helen was only little when her mother died." "Then your mother met Helen's father and the two of them hit it off," said Janet. "That's right," said Amanda gloomily. "They married a few months ago." "Well, you don't sound awfully thrilled about it," said Allison. "Don't you get on with your stepfather?" "Oh yes, he's a dear," said Amanda, "and Helen absolutely adores Mummy. It's just one another that we can't bear." Suddenly the girl became silent and looked around, giving a self-conscious little laugh and turning red. "Heavens, just listen to me. I've only known you for 5 minutes, and here I am telling you my life story. You must think I'm simply dreadful." "Ah, well, we're such kindly souls that few people can resist confiding in us," said Bobby, making everyone laugh. "And it's certainly broken the ice," said Janet. "You're one of us now, so you can tell us anything you please, and know that we won't pass it on." "Gosh, thanks awfully," exclaimed Amanda, turning pink with pleasure at being so readily accepted by these jolly, friendly girls. "I must say it is good to get it all off my chest. You see, my stepfather is very wealthy, and he's spoilt Helen all her life, letting her have everything she wants. She's the most frightful little snob as well." "I shouldn't worry about that," chuckled Isabel. "She'll soon have her corners knocked off at St Clare's." "Yes, the second formers will sit on her all right," said Hilary. "You just wait, Amanda. In a few weeks' time she'll be a much nicer person."